What's up, my friends? JT DeBold is with you today for the Elite Marketing Pro Daily Dose of Awesome. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the more important actions you should be taking in your business on a daily, if not hourly basis. And I'm going to be talking to you about the price that you're going to pay, the very huge kind of steep price you might be paying if you're not carrying out this behavior. More importantly, I'm going to be talking to you about specific ways you can actually do it and what happens when you do it. And I'll give you even a real world story about what happened to me when I almost didn't put myself out there. So as you're jumping out, let me know who you are. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And as you do, let me say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whatever time it is for you, no matter where you might be tuning in from on the Big Blue Marble. Thanks for joining us here each and every single Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for your 15 minutes of inspiration, education, and motivation to help you get your day started off right. All right. Let's see. I think I'm going to be stuck with that issue of no comments, of course, coming out again. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I guess it's my laptop because I'm broadcasting from my laptop here. A little bit of a different setting. I'm going to be heading out on a mountain bike ride here in just a couple of minutes after I get done with you guys. But wanted to take a moment to talk to you about the power, the importance, and the heavy-duty price of putting yourself out there. In fact, the power and the importance of putting yourself out there, but more importantly, the heavy-duty price if you do not put yourself out there, all right? So I apologize. I'm not going to be able to see your comments today for whatever reason. They're just not showing. Oh, there they are. See? All you got to do is click comments. It's just that easy. Hey, what's going on, Angel? Good to see you. Coming in from Alaska. That's awesome. Lots of other folks coming out here. It's good to see you guys. All right, so let's talk about this. I want to tell you a story. This was probably back in 2006, 2007. I was still full-time active duty U.S. Navy pilot, still full-time job, about 70 hours a week. And my wife and I had gotten involved in the network marketing space. We went to a live event. And it was probably one of the most powerful moves that I'd ever made as a business owner because I didn't even realize there was such a thing as a live event. But essentially, the company had a training event. It was a 2-day event. And the first day you kind of come in, there was a little bit of a mixer on a Friday evening, probably like 6 p.m. We all got together, had some drinks, had some hors d'oeuvres, appetizers, that kind of thing. And then the main event started on Saturday and then went into Sunday, and then I flew home Monday. What was interesting about it was I was in the Navy, so I had to take time off of work. I had to take leave on Friday and Monday in order for me to get there. And so I didn't know what was going on. My wife had sent me, she said, hey, you got to go check this thing out and come back and report back what you learn. If memory serves, I think she might have even been pregnant with our son Max at the time. But for whatever reason, I went to this event by myself. Now, you have to understand something. I was still full-time in the Navy. I still had a contract. Even if we were making the kind of money that could replace my income, I still had a contract and a fulfillment that I had to stick with. So there was no way I could just leave my job. I loved my job. It was my childhood dream, as many of you heard me talk about in the past. But this particular thing was one of those situations where I was kind of stuck to it. There was no way I could get out of it even if I wanted to. So going to an event seemed a little bit like putting the cart in front of the horse. All right. I thought, well, even if I could replace my income, there's no way I could actually leave the full-time job. So going to the event, everybody kept saying, hey, you got to go to events. You got to go to events. You got to go to events. Well, I went to this particular event simply on the advice of my mentor. He's a super awesome dude, somebody who to this day is a good friend of mine. I owe a lot of my personal and business success to him for the way he kind of showed me the path, and not just showed me the opportunities, but also showed me the behaviors that I had to carry out in order to be a successful leader in business. I knew a lot about being a successful leader in the military, but did not know much about successful leadership in business. So it was really important to have a mentor that could show me the way. Well, one of the first things he said, listen, dude, if you're going to be successful in this thing, you got to get around other people who are building this thing. Because if you're just relying on your ability to learn and sit on webinars and listen in on calls and these kinds of things from home, there's a limit to how much you're going to learn. There's a limit to it. Now, you got to remember, this is back in the mid-2000s, mid-2006, maybe call it 2007. So there wasn't a whole lot of, there was no Facebook Lives, for instance. Facebook itself wasn't really being used as prolifically as it's being used now for advertising. Back then, it was Google pay-per-click. It was It was all kinds of crazy stuff. Most people didn't have, access to cameras. I think you had a little flip camera. Remember those cameras? It was like, it almost looked like a cell phone, but it had a little USB port that would flip out. If you guys know what I'm talking about with a flip camera, give me a 1 in the chat box. I just want to see if anybody's out there that has, if I'm dating myself with this information. If you guys remember back in the day, and I apologize, folks, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing comments again. I guess it's my laptop. That's something I'll work on. I accept responsibility for that. I just not sure what's going on here. I see comments coming in. It says 9 comments. I'm sure there's more than that. I'm just not able to pull them up. Anyway, so I go to this event on the recommendation of my mentor, and he says to me, listen, you can only watch so many YouTube videos. You can only read so many downloads, so many reports, so many white papers, so many ebooks. You're going to have to go if you really want to learn from folks. And I'm like, all right, cool. I get it. Whenever the Navy wanted to up our game as aviators, they would send us away on a detachment, which was essentially a live event. We would fly the airplane out to some location. We'd get specialized training from, warfighters that knew what they were doing and had that extra level of knowledge. We would learn the tactics and strategies. Then we would go back to the fleet and implement them. So the concept was basically the same. Go learn specialized stuff from really smart people at a specific location that takes you out of your normal day-to-day comfort zone. So I jump on an airplane, which was not an inexpensive endeavor for me, book a hotel, which of course was an extra cost. Of course, I had food, I had drinks, I had all the other stuff that goes with it. But I knew that, I realized that if I was going to be a successful business owner, it wasn't just about making the investment in the business. It was also making the investment in the continuing education, which to me was important. One thing that surprises me even to this day is when people say, well, listen, I popped down 30 or 40 grand on this business. Is it not ready to go? Is it not just kind of one of those one and done things? And it's like, dude, that's just the ticket to admission, man. The price of admission to get into the business. Now you got to have revenue for ads. You got to be able to, operate your business. You're going to have to go, buy certain supplies and things like this. But more importantly, you're also going to have to get to these live events. So I get to the live event, show up to my hotel room. And there's a little thing, when I first checked into the hotel, it was kind of like a schedule of events. And they said, come to the Mixer Friday night, 6 p.m. So I go down to the hotel lobby and I'm hanging out. I don't know anybody. I mean, I'm just like, nobody knows my name. This is way back in the day. We hadn't even made our first sale yet in business, let alone anything. So, I kind of show up. I got my hands in my pocket. I'm in the corner of the room, kind of being a wallflower. I'm not putting myself out there. Finally, I start to see some of the famous people in my mind, at least they were famous, the big names in the company, people that I kept seeing on all the webinars, people that were on all the trainings, people that kept, being promoted in the emails and the newsletters and things about that, the top earners and all this kind of thing. People that I saw in the pictures holding up the big fake checks, the big fancy checks with all the money and stuff like that. So I'm like, cool, man. So I kind of slowly go up. I'm a fairly confident guy, introduce myself to a few people. And then I see my mentor. Now here's what's crazy. I only knew him from Facebook. I had never actually physically met him face to face, but we talked on the phone several times. So it was totally awesome to be able to kind of hang out with him, have a beer or two. And he said, man, get ready. It's going to be a great weekend. So we go to the first day event and I'm sitting up front. He says, leaders sit up front. That's what they said when I first came down the stairs into the big auditorium. And so I sit right up in the front row and I'm taking notes and I'm paying attention. I'm totally engaged. And then the day one ends and they have the dinner and then the cocktail hour that followed. What I found out was, even though I had paid, I think $500 or $600 to go to this thing, where the real wealth was, where the real information was from hanging out at the bar afterwards, actually masterminding with people when they had kind of let their guard down, when they didn't have to be on from being up on stage, right? You could get down to actually meeting the real person and talk to them about what they really did to build their business, some of the trials and tribulations, but more importantly, their backstory. Here's where it gets totally crazy. All right. Now, you got to remember, I'm a full-time employee, right? 70 hours a week working for the US Navy, flying airplanes. But in my head, I wanted to be seen as a business coach. I wanted to kind of brand myself as a business coach. And at that point, I didn't know jack about branding. I just knew that you were supposed to brand yourself, or whatever that term meant. So we're sitting around having drinks, and this guy who's one of the top earners in the company says, so what is it you do? And I said, well, I'm a business coach. Now, can you see already the disconnect here? Like, I'm a full-time employee. I'm not a business coach, but I want to brand myself as one. So I'm thinking I'm going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to act as if, just like all the gurus tell you you're supposed to, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm a business coach. He goes, cool. So tell me about your business experience. Are you a corporate guy? What's your background and all this kind of stuff? And all of a sudden I start to feel my face go flush, right? I start to sweat because one of my big core values is integrity. And all of a sudden I felt completely out of integrity. I felt like I was, sort of trying to be something I wasn't and telling a story that wasn't true. And I said, well, actually, I don't work in corporate America. I've never worked in corporate America. He goes, well, that's interesting. So what's your business background? And I said, this is it, man. This is like really one of my first businesses other than a couple of MLM failures that my wife had while I was in Iraq. He goes, whoa, you're in Iraq? Were you, active duty? I said, no, actually, I still am active duty. He goes, no joke. What do you do? I said, well, I'm a Navy pilot. This dude acted like I had just popped out of a birthday cake, man. He was like so surprised, like, oh my gosh, you're a Navy pilot. What the heck? So tell me about that. So I tell him all the stories. He wants to know all these like war stories and close calls in the airplane and all this stuff. And, we're drinking beer. So I'm telling all this stuff. And I got this like captive audience of these top earners, like these big dogs in the company. And all of a sudden I realized they're listening to my story about flying airplanes and how the Navy had rejected me a whole bunch of times and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, dude, you got an amazing story. How come you're branding yourself as something you're not? You're not a business coach. Dude, you're way bigger than that. Stop thinking about that. Stop being what other people want you to be. You got to get your story out there. Now listen, if you've ever been around military operators, whether they're special forces, Navy SEALs, pilots, anybody that's doing anything at the tip of the spear, you know that it's not about us. It's about the mission. It's about the team. We don't necessarily like coming out and bragging and throwing our weight around and talking about what we do or did or, whatever. It's more about the mission and the people we did it for. However, this guy made me realize that I was actually holding myself back. I wasn't telling my story. And it wasn't like a light switch suddenly went off, but in that moment, I realized I was making a major tactical error. And my point to sharing this with you today is, are you making that same tactical error in your business? Are you holding back your greatness from the world simply because you think there's no value to it? Who's going to listen to my story? What am I? Who am I? What have I done to impress anybody? If you have ever had a thought like that, give me a 2 in the chat box. I'm going to make another attempt at this thing. I hope I can. Hey, there's the chat. Cool. I can finally see the comments. What's up, Mike? What's going on? There's Sally Prague coming over from the UK. Right on. Gloria is on there. Cool. That's interesting. I didn't realize Gloria was on today. Anyway, so what's going on here is that there was this like major disparity between me and realizing, okay, I'm supposed to be telling this story that I thought people wanted to hear about some sort of a business coach, when really what I should have been talking about was being a Navy pilot. Well, you fast forward to today, that one conversation was pivotal because that's what started my whole brand, basically. It launched my speaking career, which launched my book, which launched my coaching practice, which actually led me to where I am here today with EMP. And my only point to teaching you this and talking to you is about how important it is to put yourself out there. If you choose to go to live events, and I recommend that you do, I totally think you need to be at No Excuses. I think it's going to change your life. I think that you're going to learn something. You're going to probably meet a few people. You may even have an experience like I have where you hang out with one of your mentors and learn one of those life or career altering sort of lessons that changes the trajectory of everything you do in business and life. My humble offering is that could happen for you and probably will. But whether you go or you don't, you have to remember, you have to play the game full out. You have to put yourself out there. And I want you to challenge yourself today. I want you to really think about what it is you're doing. Are you putting yourself out there? Are you challenging yourself? Are you pushing yourself? Are you giving yourself every opportunity to win? Or are you hiding back? Are you playing it safe? Are you holding yourself back from your greatness and saying, you know what, I'm really not supposed to be here. I'm really not as big a deal. There's all these other people that have bigger stories. They have bigger results. They have bigger whatever. If that's what you're thinking, you got to realize you are shortchanging yourself and you're actually shortchanging the world. Get yourself out there, share your message, share your story, and realize you have some worth. So how do we do it? Step number 1, take a look at your past. What have been your biggest victories? What have been your biggest things that you've contributed to the world? And it doesn't have to be, hey, listen, I played in the Olympics, right? Or I was the, the president of my school student body, or I was the top, leader in some team. Maybe it was something where you just showed up and you delivered consistently. You delivered excellence on a consistent basis. I don't care if you were a CPA. I don't care if you were a fourth grade teacher. I don't care if you were a stay-at-home parent. Some area where you showed up and you delivered, all right? There's some value in that. The question that I would ask you is, what can you glean from that? What kind of lessons can you distill from what you learned through that experience? Step number 2, what are 2 or 3 things that you firmly believe in? 2 or 3 things that are your core values, your major drivers, your big vision in business or in life. All right. I'm personally, one of my big things is discipline. All right. I firmly believe that discipline does equal freedom. This is not my brand, by the way, but it's definitely something that I live by. And I truly believe that if people, instead of being inspired or motivated, instead of going for that cotton candy BS of life, instead go for the meat and potatoes of discipline, you will become a very successful business leader. Which brings me to my other one, and that's leadership. Discipline and leadership. If you believe in those things, those are my core values. Those are some of the things that I truly believe and drive me. Those are the things that I stand by, and that's part of my message. You've got to find what those are for you. 2 to 3 really solid core values, core beliefs that are central to who you are and what you believe. The next thing is you just got to show up and get it out there. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be awesome. You've heard me say this before. Don't be perfect. Just be awesome. So often we judge ourselves. We think, well, who am I compared to so-and-so? Who am I compared to this? What have I done? If I haven't made my first sale, who cares, right? I got news for you. There are lots of people out there that absolutely care. They care more about you than they care about your results. You are not your results. You are not your lack of results. You are not your failures. You are not your successes. You are you. How you think, how you operate. Remember the 4 things I've talked about: your values, your vision, your mission, and your purpose. That's who you really are. That's what comprises you. But even those individually aren't you. It's how you show up each and every single day. And only you can do that. That, my friend, is how come it's so important for you to realize that and put yourself out there on a daily basis. Now, what's the danger? What's the cost? The cost is, if you don't put yourself out there, you might be limiting yourself. You might be saying to yourself, well, I can do this, but I cannot do this, right? I can do this, but I'm not able to do that. And then all of a sudden you start negotiating with yourself as to what you can and cannot do, or what you will and won't do. And typically it's based on comfort. What feels scary? What feels uncomfortable? We'll do that later, or we won't do it at all. What feels good? What feels cozy? What feels like the quickest hit? What feels like the quickest feeling of good, or the quickest path to whatever, getting something out of it? Maybe getting an ROI, maybe making a sale. What's the fastest path to that? All of a sudden we start seeking out the easy way. That's not necessarily the path to greatness, all right? Sometimes putting yourself out there is one of the scariest, most challenging things you're going to do in business, and that is exactly how come you should be doing it. Here's the other part, the price that you might pay, is leaving somebody who needs that, even if it is inspiration for them, it leaves them on the sidewalk. It leaves them just standing there on the sidewalk, waving the flag, cheering for somebody else in their ticker tape parade, as opposed to seeing themselves in you, seeing the courage, seeing the inspiration in you, in your actions, and showing yourself and putting yourself out there, getting something from that, and then getting off the sidewalk themselves and joining in the parade, being a part of the parade, being one of the heroes that are being saluted and being cheered. Now, that's a huge responsibility, I understand, and sometimes it feels heavy. Sometimes we think, you mean I'm supposed to be the person that inspires other people, that lifts other people up and helps show them the way? Me? Little old me? The answer is yes. Not little old you, but you. Big, strong, powerful you. So you must get your message out there. You must have the courage. You must have the discipline, yes. And you must have the belief, at least in yourself, or at least in who you are, that you have something of value to give, and then you got to show up and give it. My friends, we got one shot at this thing called life. We get one lap around the big magical circle of this experience. Question is, are you going to go the full lap? Are you going to go full speed, full throttle with the foot pedal on the gas, or gas pedal on the floorboard? Or are you going to sit back and watch other people celebrate and be celebrated? It's entirely up to you. The decision is all yours, but remember, there is a cost, a heavy price to pay by not putting yourself out there. And on the flip side, there's much to be reaped, much to be rewarded when you do put yourself out there. Not just for yourself, but for the people that you serve with your message, the people you serve with your wisdom, the people you serve with the inspirational example that you set and lead by. And that, my friends, is something that's pretty powerful. If you got something out of this, give me a long distance high five here in the chat box. I honestly wish I could see every single one of you, and perhaps there's a reason for this. I saw somebody say that there's 2 daily doses going on, and it's possible that my schedule is all jacked. I thought I was up for today, so I came here live and ready to rock and roll, but perhaps that's what we're having a challenge with here. I appreciate you guys anyway, either way, and just know that we come at you here every single Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. It is always a privilege and an honor. Looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Make sure you join us right here, same time, same place, for another inspirational message from another awesome mentor here. And remember, no matter what course you fly in life, fly high, fly fast, and fly far. We'll see you all very soon.